You cannot manage 20% growth without a plan. Right now we're 31,000, but we know we're going to be 50,000 probably by 2040. So what does that mean? What does that mean for us? First time I ran for mayor, the three things I heard at the doors over and over and over again were lower our taxes, we want a target, and when are we getting a pool? We are absolutely the most accessible layer of government. And I always try to tell people that come to us with anything.
Welcome to Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. I'm your host, Dave Martin. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Mayor of Dubuque, and your president of the Iowa League of Cities, Mayor Brad Cavanagh. Nice to see you again, Mayor Cavanagh.
Hello, Dave.
Who are we talking to today?
Well, we've got Courtney Clarke, the mayor of Waukee, Iowa, with us today. Hey, Courtney.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hi, Mayor Clarke. And that is, I want to specify, that is Mayor Clarke with an E. Correct?
Yes. Although it gets misspelled all the time, I regularly have to have our city clerk correct documents that have been sent to me, like contracts for me to sign that have it wrong.
All right.
So,
Mayor Courtney Clarke with an E. Thank you.
Yep.
So I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. One of the things I know about Waukee, one of the few things I know about Waukee is you're having phenomenal growth, but I understand you're now in your second term as mayor.
Yes, I am.
And did you actually run unopposed?
No, well, for my second term, I did run unopposed, but my first time I had an opponent. Yeah.
So this means that you have handled all the growth correctly. Everything is fine. You've taken care of every single problem there is. Everything's perfect in Waukee. Because what I understand from you is you have to make a plan.
Yes, you do. I think most mayors would absolutely say this, but for us, it is 100% true that that you cannot manage 20% growth without a plan. So absolutely.
And if I read my notes correctly, is Waukee not the fastest growing city in the US of A?
No, we are. If you look at growth since 2000,
okay.
We're the 11th fastest growing city by percentage since 2000. Sorry.
Okay.
11th fastest in the U.S. Yeah.
You're the 11th fastest in the U.S. And I think I saw in my notes somewhere 8,000 new residents in the past 4 years.
Yes. Yep. Since 2020.
Wow. So obviously you've done this brilliantly, but how do you manage this?
Yeah, well,
and while you're at it, Mayor Cavanagh's taking notes, so talk slowly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, first of all, I don't do anything alone. That is definitely a misinformation or a misnomer or something along those lines. We absolutely have to be on top of it. I hear regularly from people, well, we need to plan better. And yet I look at our city and I think, our planning has been phenomenal. When we have managed to see our way through and achieve the growth we've achieved without some of the resources that we absolutely needed at the time. The planning has absolutely come through. And so that's all down to our city staff, down to the foresight of previous councils, down to the foresight of our current council. And then, absolutely, I'm part of that, but it is 100% a team effort. And very much you have to look out to the next 20 years, the next 15, 10, 5, and 1 to say, what do we need to do in order to plan for being, right now we're 31,000, but we know we're going to be 50,000 probably by 2040. So what does that mean? What does that mean for us? And so we have to plan for that.
So I have a question for both mayors. It's really hard to get people to spend money, period. It's really hard to get people to spend money on things that they can't, hold, touch, feel, or see. How do you both deal with, those long-term plans and like, hey, we're going to need bus service for a street that doesn't exist. We're going to need a school for students that aren't here. You're the guest, Mayor Clarke. I'll have you go first, but how do you do that?
Yeah, I think, first of all, demonstrating time after time after time that we're doing this effectively and efficiently is great basis for and foundation for asking people to believe in vision for the future. If you have managed it to date and you can show the success, right, then asking people to trust is a little bit easier. You're absolutely right. People don't like paying property taxes. They don't necessarily see. They can't hold it. It's not a tangible return on investment. And yet you and I know that amenities and roads to get to work and safe communities those are returns on investment. Those absolutely are the things we can hold, and yet they aren't tangible. So I think it is just proving time and time again that you're being effective and efficient with those resources. But being able to show the vision is also really important, and to show why it's important. As an example, we are currently constructing our second public safety facility. It is going to be open this June. It is $40 million. That is not an easy number, right? To swallow for
right.
a lot of people.
That's a big amount.
It's a big number, and yet demonstrating how out of space we are in our current, the fact that our city has grown and that we want to keep response times low, right? We need to keep response times low to make sure people are safe and healthy and all of those things. So it's just continuing to show the value and the effect that this will have long term. I think that's really important. Historically speaking, we lobbied for and received a lot of funding for our Grand Prairie Parkway, which is our large road into town off the interstate. And a lot of people thought it was crazy at the time, lobbying for this 12 years ago when there was nothing but cornfields there. And today, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of valuation on that street and hundreds of millions more coming in the next couple of years. And that is real, right? And so
sure.
There is value in planning for the future and making sure that you're investing wisely into your community.
So, Brad, do you do it completely differently in Dubuque?
No, actually, ironically, I'm pretty sure that Waukee and Dubuque have a very similar way of planning for things. I think we work with the same consultant in doing so a lot of the time for an annual goal setting process. But, as I think in my time on council, so this is my 4th year as mayor. I was on council for 2 years. I've seen how that planning actually can become very tangible very quickly. And, one of the things that I think that Dubuque has done really well in making sure that you can do things and move forward and spend money when you have to, invest, I would say, when you have to. And I think that resident engagement is the number one way to start that process. I think one thing that has gone really well in Dubuque, and we've sort of just replicated this process over and over again with major projects, is we go to the community first. So we set it up and then we go and have actual listening sessions. And we do that for a while. I mean, we take months, if not years, to listen to what people have to say before we start pushing for changes or starting to make those changes and doing things. And I think that that's a huge way to be able to be very effective as you start to move forward with some major difficult lifts that you're going to have as a community. And then I think too, you continue to tell the story. You have to make sure that people are understanding what we're doing, why we're doing it. Honestly, we all need to be reminded of the things that we said in the past. So I think, to be able to remind the community that, well, we did this study. It took a year and this is what everybody said. We got like 6,000 people to tell us this is what we wanted. So we keep reminding people of that and telling those stories, and then telling the story of the process as things get built is a really easy way to make sure that you have the community following along. So, our communications department, using video, using social media, just using traditional media to send to people's homes, I think is a way that has been a really effective way of making sure that we can do the things that the community needs and make it more real for people.
There you go. All right. You're in total agreement. Just like all the citizens of both of your cities. All right. So I want to read a quote from the mayor of Waukee, Iowa. She said, "You can't do everything at once."
Yes.
Is that why? Come on, you're the mayor. You have to do everything all at once, every day, everything. You have to pick up the garbage and police the cities and educate the kids and plan the new hospital and fix the roads and all at once. How do you do it?
Yeah. So again,
these are your words. So this is what you said, not me.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I did.
okay.
So again, I think it comes back to planning. We have. So I'm gonna talk just a little bit about our strategic planning process,
Sure.
which Brad knows very well. But so every year when we start this process, and we do it annually, we work with our consultant in order to identify what are the key priorities from staff, what are the key priorities from department directors, what are the key priorities from council and myself. And then we meet for 2 days and hash it out, basically. And it comes down to 25 key priorities over the next 12 to 18 months that we can accomplish, because 200, that's usually what we start out with, is like 200, because everybody wants everything, right?
Sure.
And we can't accomplish 200 in the next 12 to 18 months on top of the work that our staff is already doing, right?
Right.
Our staff is already doing a tremendous amount of work. Our police department is responding to calls every single day. Our fire department had an increase in calls of 18% last year over year. We do 13,000 utility locates a year. I mean, just the work that we do every single day that our staff does. And on top of that amazing amount of work that we're doing for our residents, we can't do 200 priorities in a year, even if we want to. So it really is coming to a consensus on what are the 25 that are the most critical. That's not to say we're not going to work on others, right, over the next year, but they have to be key and they have to have real definable goals at the end of it, outcomes that we want to see achieved in order to move the city forward. And if you do that year after year after year, like Brad said, you see it come to fruition. You see it become tangible pretty quickly, that if you achieve your goals in the next 12 to 18 months, and then you do it again next year and again next year, that it does shape the city. It does really achieve the 5-10 year plans that you have. But again, you can't do 200. And so, ultimately it has to come down to prioritization. And that's true with major projects too, right? We don't have unlimited funding this fiscal year, or unlimited resources and personnel in order to oversee everything we would like to build, or that we know needs built over the next 5 years. And that's why a 5-year, capital improvement plan is so important. So you can stage it out and you can prioritize what's critical in next fiscal year, what's critical by 27, and move through it that way. As much as we would like to achieve it all in 1 year, it's just not fiscally possible or possible with our personnel.
Your to-do list must be exhausting.
It gets to be. It gets to be. I'm sure there are times our staff would really like to stop getting emails from me, but it is just really important to focus on what you can achieve.
So talking about the future, apparently you spearheaded a move to expand the Dallas County Board of Supervisors from 3 to 5.
Yes.
That sounds like a future plan. What made you do this, and how is it going to work out better?
Yeah. So Dallas County is the fastest growing county in the state. We are now the 6th largest county in the state. And we still had 3 Board of Supervisors members, and they do not have a county manager or administrator.
Okay.
They do the work. And 2 of the 3 have full-time other jobs.
Oh, so it's not a full-time job. Yeah.
And it's technically is, but not, And so we know that there is more and more work to be done as we continue to grow as a county. And our needs have very much diversified in the last several years. The needs of a town like Greenfield or Perry are different than the needs of a city like Waukee. And so it's really important to us as mayors. So the mayors of Dallas County all got together on this initiative because it's really important to us to make sure that our cities are represented at the table and that the needs of each of the cities is being heard. And so that was really the driving force behind it. So it will go to 5 next year. So that was passed, and it will go to 5 supervisors in next year's general election.
Gotcha. So I actually have a question about this, Dave, because I think it fits with some other things that we see going on in the world right now. The partnership between different levels of government is one of the things that I've noticed as an incredibly important aspect of the work that we do. So I'm thinking about you as a city and the things that you're going through. Just this, we've talked a lot about growth. We've talked a lot about all these major projects that you're working on. Staff are overwhelmed. You need a lot of funding to be able to do that. Cities just in no way can come up with that amount of funding on their own. I mean, it really is a matter of being able to
shaking her head no.
Come together
Totally
and be able to come together and work on these things. And I know in Dubuque, we've leveraged especially the state and federal government pretty extensively to be able to do major things over the years. And we work very closely with our county government as you're kind of describing the importance of that relationship. I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit about that. And I know, none of us like to put it on the spot and talk about things in this really terrible way, because I think that there are definite positives and negatives to any moment of, working with government and working with different levels of government. But I'm just curious what your perspective is from where you sit in the situation that Waukee is in.
Well, I love that you brought that up, honestly, because one of the things I hear from residents sometimes is, I just wish cities worked together better on things. And I am always surprised by that, because I don't do anything without other levels of government, other cities, when we're trying to achieve something, we work with our neighboring cities all the time. We work with both our county and with Polk County that's neighboring to us, because so many of our neighboring cities are in Polk County. And so the state legislature, the Iowa Finance Authority are, specifically the Iowa Finance Authority, a tremendous partner, right? And,
right.
So absolutely, we work together all the time on initiatives, and it's really hard to get things done or to access the funding that you need if you're not part of those conversations and part of the region, part of the state, being a participant across all levels. So I view that as a huge part of my role. I think you've probably mentioned it on this podcast. I think I've heard it on this podcast that I don't vote, right? I am not a voting member of my council, but absolutely making sure that we are having the right regional conversations, the right statewide conversations is a huge part of my role. And we don't have currently in Waukee a lot of federal funds that are granted to us, not right now. But we do have, quite a few programs that we've accessed through the state that have obviously made a huge difference in terms of our utilities build outs and a whole host of other programs, and then even within kind of countywide, we have accessed funding from Polk County, which we're not even in, but for stormwater mitigation, because so many of our watersheds actually start in Dallas County and feed into Polk County, and they have experienced flooding because of it. They've granted us funds to do better stormwater mitigation around the watersheds. And so this is just one way in which we work together across boundaries in order to try to make sure that everyone is really getting what they need. Obviously, we want to be good partners, and we don't want flooding to happen downstream from us. And so whatever we can do upstream is really important. And the fact that we can partner with both counties on that is pretty important.
So I probably should have asked this early on, but other than the brilliant leadership of the mayor in Waukee, what is bringing everyone to Waukee? Tell me about your town. Why does everybody want to live there?
Well, I think it's a couple of reasons. One, we do have a phenomenal school system in Waukee. We're very much known for it. And I think that is a huge boon. And I know I'm biased because my kids are going through it, but yes, we have a phenomenal school system. So I think that's a huge draw. Additionally, we do have quite a bit of focus on building amenities, whether it's trails, parks, expanding opportunities for things. I think that's a strong draw for families, particularly, but also for seniors. We have a lot of seniors that have moved to Waukee because of the access to trails or amenities, or because their grandkids are here going through the school system or anything along those lines. So I would say those are kind of the top two that we hear from people that are moving to Waukee, is the schools and the amenities. And so we continue to put focus on those.
What's the reputation of Waukee, the rest of the state, Mr. League President?
We're a little jealous. Everybody would like to grow that fast, honestly. I mean, that really is, I think, one of the biggest things. I know for me personally, I'm watching very closely that the work that Courtney and her council and her team are all doing, just to learn from it. We all hope to get some level of growth that is even close to what Waukee's experiencing. In Iowa, it is a rare thing. We haven't seen it for years and years and years. So it's something that is a bit new to be able to look at and experience. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it's handled and learning a lot. So I appreciate, being able to see that as an example. But yeah, I would say jealous more than anything else.
Okay. Before we get into our little questionnaire about Iowa, I wanted to ask you, you recently wrote an editorial in the Des Moines Register, and I'm quoting you. I'm sorry. This is like the third time I've quoted you, but you're very quotable.
Dave's stalking a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. Well,
yes.
We met.
It's good.
A quote: "Cities aren't spending frivolously or wildly." You said that. And then you talked a little bit about taxes. What was the point of of the editorial? What was the point you were trying to make?
Yeah. I said earlier, nobody likes paying property taxes.
Right.
We all get that. I think something that people forget is that we as city staff and we as city leaders are paying those taxes too. We're not unaware of the dollar amount. However, in Iowa, that is the vast majority and really the key way we actually fund things in cities. We don't have a lot of other methods in order to fund things. There are a lot of limitations by state code on how we can fund things. And so we try to be really respectful and responsible with those dollars. Our city administrator has said multiple times, if people want to come in and look at our books any day of the week, they're on our website. You can do it any day of the week. But if people wanted to come in and sit down with our finance director and talk through line items, they won't find a lot of fat, right? We do things pretty lean, and we're not being inefficient with those dollars. I think sometimes these numbers get thrown around that sort of overwhelm people and say, well, they're spending, $18 million on a road project. Well, that's because it costs $18 million. Building roads is not cheap, right? Or 35 to 40 million on the new public safety building. Again, it's not cheap to build and outfit both a fire station and police station in one that will hold ultimately up to 75 police officers.
I think one of the things I saw in your editorial you talked about was some of the big ticket items that were spent were actually cost savings down the road. So,
yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. And if they continue, right, we're victims of inflation just like everybody else. They've gotten more expensive in the last several years, and they continue to. So if we can achieve things through spending now rather than waiting until they're more expensive or offsetting future needs, that's something that is absolutely important and a cost savings.
How was your editorial received?
I think fairly positively. I received a lot of comments from community members about the fact that some of this they didn't know, and they just appreciated me bringing it up.
Okay.
For example, the cost of a new ladder truck, which we need because our current one is 21 years old. We need a new ladder truck for our fire department, and that cost is $1.8 million, a fully outfitted. They were shocked, right? Yeah. And yet these are numbers that as a mayor, you see a lot, and these numbers, and yet most people don't. And so I think it was helpful just from an educational perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I was actually just going to point out is the fact that I really appreciated your letter. And I know a lot of people who did. I think it was very well written. I think it was said at the right time. And it really, part of the challenge that we face is just this general distrust of government that has been a bit of a theme in the last couple of decades. And I think it goes to every level of government, but it hits us too. The difference between us though, and government that is larger at the state level or the federal level is that we're doing it right there at home. I mean, everything we do is on a daily basis, right at the same place that all the people we represent live. And I think that makes a huge difference because we can talk about these things in a way that is more real to people. So, it is difficult to have to fund things, but that investment can have a very clear return. And I think that it's a great way of being able to build trust in government again, is having good government at the local level in the way that you've described it here.
We are absolutely the most accessible layer of government. And I always try to tell people that come to us with anything, right? It doesn't matter what it is, right? I get letters from kids asking for more fast food restaurants. It doesn't matter what it is.
That's great.
How long does it take you to get to the supermarket on a typical Saturday morning?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was just going to mention last week at the store, I got stopped by somebody to ask a question. I was at my daughter's jazz band performance on Saturday, and I got asked a question about our gas utility. It is never ending, but at the same time, that's the job. And that's part of our job, is to make sure we're communicating with everybody and we're listening, but we're also reflecting back what's actually happening here. And so we absolutely are the most accessible layer of government. And I am honored by that.
How was the jazz performance?
It was good. It was good. They're seventh graders. Okay. So she was, my daughter was down on herself because it wasn't perfect. And I keep reminding her, we're all learning, right? Okay. We're learning.
All right. So now that was the hard part. This is the fun part. Okay. We've talked a lot about your city. Tell me what makes Waukee a uniquely Iowa city, though.
You know, what's interesting about it is, we're actually an amalgamation of, I mean, I hate to say melting pot, but an amalgamation of Iowa, of the country, of a lot of areas that have come. We have a lot of residents that are new Iowans, right? That are either new from another state, new from another country, new from another city in Iowa, but mostly from outside of Iowa. And I think historically speaking, Iowa used to be very welcoming across the board, and really welcoming of immigrants and newcomers. And I think that Waukee is absolutely sort of a little bit of a microcosm of that. Okay. As I look at our newcomers, where they're coming from and why they're coming. And so I think that's sort of a uniquely Iowan thing.
Very good.
I love that answer. That's a great one. It's good to think about our history as a state as we think about what that means to be a uniquely Iowa city that way. So what does good government look like in Waukee? When you think good government, what does that look like in Waukee?
Yeah. Well, I talked a lot about planning already, but effective planning for the future is absolutely critical. It is listening and working with your residents, listening to and working with your residents to understand their desires, their needs, what they want to see happen, working with partners across the board. We have an amazing relationship with our school district, with our neighboring cities, ongoing efforts to work together on projects. I think those three things are really critical to good government. And all of that is kind of based on a foundation of being, financially responsible. We talked a lot in Waukee about providing the most value for this, providing the most service value for the dollars. And we talk about that at all staff levels, at council level. And so we really focus on making sure that the value that we're providing to residents in the daily services, in the ongoing communication, and future planning.
So 5 years in as mayor,
yeah.
What do you see as your biggest accomplishment in office? What are you proud of?
Well, that would probably be different if you asked residents. They'd probably say she finally brought Target to
Okay.
Because literally they've been wanting it for like 12 years.
Okay. Big box store, check.
So I joke with people that first time I ran for mayor, the three things I heard at the doors over and over and over again were lower our taxes, we want a Target, and when are we getting a pool? And those are the three things I heard. and we've lowered our levy every, 6 out of the last 7 years.
Okay.
We have a target now.
Very good.
And we put a pool up for a vote on the November ballot, and it got voted down. So I do feel like I have met all three in terms of my responsibilities or what I can control.
I'm out of the pool. That's how we're clear on that one.
But I think, that does show responsiveness, obviously,
invite people over, do it that way.
I think from my perspective, the thing I am most proud of in terms of a significant accomplishment, it's not quite done yet, but is really around affordable housing. We have been working on trying to figure out what affordable housing means for Waukee and how to access funding and how to get it done for a number of years. And, really since I became mayor, and we are in the process of building. So that's that's huge for us to be able to accomplish that.
That's great. We have a joke in Dubuque that what people have wanted for decades is a Red Lobster. We even have stickers that I came across. Somebody selling stickers that says Dubuque, Iowa, we don't have a Red Lobster. So that's always been the joke for a very long time. It's changing now. I think it might be Trader Joe's now, but I understand the Target needs. Yeah, for sure.
Now, I think now my residents would say Chick-fil-A. There are some in West Des Moines, which is not that far from us. Yes, now my residents would probably say Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
All right, so this kind of fits with our final question here that I want to ask you. What is your favorite place in Waukee, Iowa?
There are so many I could point to, and I hate to even name one because I feel like I'm discounting others.
You could name more than one.
Yeah. Well, my husband's favorite place is our new music venue. He loves live music and goes to concerts all the time. So our new music venue is definitely his. I would say mine is probably, anywhere in our park system. My kids love going to the park. And so we made it a goal a couple of years ago to not just go to the two near our house, but to tour them all, because a lot of them have different themes.
Oh, cool.
So we actually have a spaghetti park, which has spaghetti themed things, which is bizarre. But
you're gonna have to
part of our
explain
history.
that. What do they have, like meatballs and lasagna on the walls?
Alice's Spaghetti Land was part of our history in Waukee. And so we have a spaghetti themed park. You'd have to see pictures to understand it. But we ended up touring all of our parks over a summer. And that was fun. But the other thing that I think residents get new residents don't know about, but once they do, they really like, is our downtown triangle, which is our original area of Waukee. And there are a lot of small locally owned, that's where our, locally owned hardware store and our locally owned butcher shop and our locally owned ice cream place. And so I think for that feel, the triangle is kind of near and dear to a lot of people's hearts.
All right. So Spaghetti Park is on my list. So Brad is convincing me to take a grand tour of Iowa. Could you please put Spaghetti Park on the list?
Yeah, it's there already. It's definitely there. Near the top even.
I got a lot of places to go to and not much time. And I got to have a stuffing sandwich, but that's a conversation for another day.
Turkey and dressing sandwich.
A turkey and dressing sandwich. Courtney Clarke with an E, the mayor of Waukee, Iowa. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you, as always. Brad?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot,
Courtney.
Thanks for exploring more of Iowa with us on Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. Brad and I will be back again next month. That's our show. Thanks for listening. Join us again right here for the next episode of Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. Make sure you like us and share us with your friends. Follow us on Facebook. Leading Iowa is a Valley Park production in association with the Iowa League of Cities. The show is executive produced by Katie Wheeler and Brad Cavanagh for the Iowa League of Cities. Jim Ludlow, Dave Martin, that's me, and David Snyder are executive producers for Valley Park Productions. Our show is edited and produced by Jason Stershic.